Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Nordic Sound Channel. As always, I am your host, Jameson Foster, and today I am joined by a long overdue guest, Mr. Espen Winther of Eldrim, a man who seemingly needs no introduction, but I'm going to give him one anyway. At least since the days when I was in college, he has been the face of the toggle harpa on the internet with his videos even shared by places like Classic FM. And for followers of this podcast in particular, probably most known for performing with Folket Bortofor Nordavinden, and of course, Eldrim with a new album coming out very soon, which is the topic of today's conversation. So, Espen, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today?
Thank you very much. I'm really pleased to be here. I've seen many of your podcasts, interviews, and I love them. So, yeah.
Awesome, man. I appreciate you saying that. I always love it when you pop up in the comments on YouTube.
Be kind.
Exactly. All right, man. So, as I said, I've been wanting to have you on the channel for quite a bit. Just the lines kept, doing this. So, as I said, sort of, I think a lot of people are first introduced to you, Espen, through the work that you did for the Toggle Harpa on YouTube way back in the day. So in particular, your null video, which you still get comments on for wearing your cross. I love the updates on that. So I would kind of love to know, assuming you got into music before even the Toggle Harpa came into the picture, I always love to start by sort of getting my bearings on like where you sort of first fell in love with music, what your first encounter with music was, and really what got you into music growing up.
I think I have had at least quite musical interested parents. My
Mm-hmm.
mother listened to Elvis and Roger Whittaker and a
Awesome.
little bit of the softer stuff. And my
Mm-hmm.
father listened to Dr. Hook and Johnny Cash.
Hell yeah.
And I loved probably all the music they listened to.
Mm-hmm.
And I think maybe, I don't know how old I was, but I found my mother's old guitar and started just, well, I didn't know anything. But my mother had Lillebjørn Nilsen's guitar book.
Okay.
And Lillebjørn Nilsen is one of the biggest folk songwriters in Norway.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he has much of the responsibility. He has to have, sorry, he's dead now, but he he was a big part of many people playing guitar
Mm-hmm.
because he made like this is how you play the guitar
Okay.
for dummies almost. So I learned. My mother gave me that book, and I learned grip by grip and chord by chord. And suddenly I knew "Hang Down Your Head, Tom Dooley." It started really basic.
Okay.
And when I got a little older, we moved to around this area where I live now. And we went to a youth club, and they had a rehearsal room.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to be a drummer. So I started playing drums with three other guys. And until I realized that's maybe not the music I want to play, and
Mm-hmm.
that's maybe not the instrument I want to play.
And what kind of music was that you guys were playing together?
No, that was just music because we
Okay.
could. There was no, it wasn't any genre or anything. It was just music.
Just coming together to make noise.
Yeah,
Okay. Awesome.
probably closer to pop than
Mhm.
metal.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I would assume so.
Because we were a really mixed bunch.
Mm-hmm.
And a few years later, I started playing bass with some friends of mine, and did that for quite a long time. And
Mm-hmm.
I think I am a bass player, if I
I
should be anything.
I think that's why we click a little bit because bass players are very kindred spirits. I always sort of had a feeling that you were a bassist, because bassists can tell other bassists. And I know when you first turned on your camera, I saw it might be a stingray you have in the background.
It's a copy, but it's a
Yep.
Stingray.
Yeah, yeah.
and I've changed the pickups so it's now a Stingray.
Hell yeah, dude.
Really sounds like thunder, man. Uh,
Awesome. No, man. Yeah, I always had a feeling you were a bassist. I was wondering when it was going to come up.
I'm not really, I'm not on any instrument. I'm not a
Mhm,
technical player.
mhm,
But I think I am a feeling player.
mhm.
I, I think I don't like Malmsteen, Yngwie Malmsteen, but I like David Gilmour.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Very much, musicians always fall on that spectrum, are you the technical type of person or are you very much an intuition type of
And
player?
I don't think my muscles are fast enough to really play. I'm slow. I'm the slow hand.
Yeah, that was honestly that was why I sort of dropped the classical music thing when I was a music major, is because the level of technical commitment it takes to do that kind of stuff and make it anywhere meaningful, making it a career. I just
Yeah.
realized early on that's not the type of musician I am to be able to play like that. I'm very much, if we can put it very much a bluegrass player instead of a classical player, because I just want to feel the thump.
Yeah. Yes, I love playing bass and I love making music on the bass.
Hmm.
I play some guitar too, and I've had some years as a guitarist and a vocalist in a band,
Hmm.
but I always come back to the bass.
Yeah.
And then I had some years just singing uh, in a metal band, uh, metal-ish band, maybe.
Okay.
Not it was a metal band, and a band I really loved, but nobody took the rudder. If you
Hmm.
so
Yeah, yeah.
so it just died out,
Hmm.
sadly. And then the music was put on a shelf for some years
Hmm.
until in 2012 I was invited to photograph on Borre Vikingmarked.
Okay,
Uh,
so this is where it comes in.
yeah, this is where it comes in. And in the morning, I drove my then girlfriend to her work, and I went to because the Viking market is Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, but the rest of the week you have workshops, and all
Mhm.
the Vikings are moving in on the weekdays. So I was
Okay.
there from morning to evening all week, and I really got the virus. Because the
So,
smell, because I was there before they woke up,
yep.
and so I observed the camp of Vikings,
Hmm.
700 Vikings waking up and starting to live and do their things. They lit the bonfires and smell and the coffee and breakfast, and I got to know really many good people. So yeah, I really got the virus.
That's so funny. I'm still conditioned to when someone says I caught the virus. I'm like, whoa, whoa, that's awful. But no, you you meant that like you caught the closest thing in English
Viking
we would say
virus.
you caught the bug. Like
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
sort of yeah, because I forgot to mention, because this is a music podcast, but it's very much worth mentioning that Espen is also an incredible photographer, if I may say so. So in case
Thank you.
anyone listening was wondering where that where the photography came in, I'm actually not surprised at all that photography had something to do with it. Um, it's very interesting for me to hear that it wasn't music in particular that brought you to the market. You were sort of asked like, "Hey, we need a photographer," and you
Yeah,
specifically went to Buro, which is where Midgardsblot is. Yeah.
yeah.
So
It's
what
on the
sort of?
beach where the
Mhm.
where the camp is. That's
Yeah,
where the market is.
yeah, and you were just there a couple weeks ago, yeah.
Yeah.
And so would that make it 10 years about of you doing that?
12.
12, yeah, 12
2012.
years of you going making that same pilgrimage.
Yeah.
So
It's 20 minutes from my home, so
okay, well that makes it easy, right? Yeah. So as much as I really want to get into, there's a question I wanted to ask you about how much stuff has changed. And that's my favorite question to ask people like yourself who've been around for a bit in this scene. But I'm going to do my best to hold off on that because
Mm,
I really want to make sure that I sort of get a clearer picture of So the photography is what brought you to the Viking market, and I understand just as many people listening who have been to one, or at least I go to the Midgardsblot version of one, um, where it's very easy to fall in love with, especially in such a setting. You say you're an early morning person, I'm an early morning person. I'm one of the first people to get up in the morning at the camp at the festival.
Yeah.
I've got the whole place to myself. So that
But there's no coffee for me then.
yeah, no coffee. I sit there just staring at the waves, thinking of coffee until the tent opens up, and then yeah. So it's very easy to fall in love with, and so I guess I'm wondering, is there anything more specific you want to say about the atmosphere or the setting, or what it was like for you? Sort of first encountering that thing for the first time. Is there anything in particular you can think about that really stuck with you?
I can say that I found my, because I really like taking portraits,
Mm-hmm.
and I think I found my way of portraiting people with my camera.
Yep.
And I'm not sure if it was, it must have been Saturday morning I first met Benny from Folke.
Here we go.
Yeah. And I first took a couple of pictures of his brother
Mm-hmm.
uh, and Kjell.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Benny put his face out of the tent, like really, really hung over face. And I just fell in love with the face. So can I please take a photograph of you? And he was rather skeptical because he probably didn't feel so fresh. But I convinced him and I said, you are beautiful. I need to take that photo. And
Very photogenic bunch they are. Very
yeah,
photogenic bunch.
and when I came back to my office the same evening, I put all the pictures over to my computer, and when I looked swipe, 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 and then I came to the face of Benny, and I just what the it was so beautiful. I wish I could show it to you here because it was so beautiful.
If you want to send it to me afterwards, I can sort of like edit it over the video for people watching. Yep.
I'll
Very
do
easily
that.
do that. Yeah.
And so I printed it out,
Mm-hmm.
took it with me to on Sunday morning. And the first person I met was Kjell,
Mm-hmm.
uh, his brother, and I showed him the picture, and he was just like the tears.
Aw.
Yeah, so, yeah, I knew I had hit something. So
Yep.
that's my first really okay. Now I'm a photographer.
Yep.
That feeling. Yeah,
Yeah.
that really has stuck.
Do
And
you think it was anything because of the setting, where people are
yeah,
a little bit more raw, if I can use that word? Is I can see that
yeah,
being attractive as a photographer.
yeah, and you don't know if they're a lawyer or if they're a hobo or anything. They have their Viking stuff on. You don't know who they are, at least
Mm-hmm.
not the first or 2 years.
Yeah.
And you will not recognize them when you meet them in civil, with their civilian clothes. Because who's that? Ah, Viking.
That is actually.
Yes.
Do you want to say more about that? Because you are not the first guest I've had on the channel who's sort of talked about how beautiful the markets are in that way that they equalize. Um,
Hmm.
as I know, Jacob from Heilung, he said the exact same thing, where
Yeah.
it's this great equalizer where people sort of set aside their personal stuff and everyone sort of like at least pretends to be on the same page for a week.
Yeah.
If you want to say more than that, please do.
I don't think it's pretend because it's like going to a carnival or a masquerade. If you have
Mm-hmm.
something else on,
Mm-hmm.
uh, you kind of become that the thing you have on.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't think it's pretending. I think it's just releasing something,
Okay.
another reality, or maybe. And uh, and if you don't see which social layer the person you are talking to is on, you just have to act like you act. You'll be who you are.
That is beautiful, man. Yeah, I mean, because I see that same thing. You could even talk about the way that black metal bands dress up is not so much pretend as it is releasing something. I really love that word, releasing something that's sort of buried down. I think that's a really really beautiful way to put it. Do you feel the same way if we're going to sort of like transition into the Viking, how you then eventually got into the reenactment clothes with, and as a musician, do you feel that way
Yeah,
when you sort of put on the garb and all of that?
I'm not sure if I change, but I think I'm not really sure because
Yeah.
yeah, maybe everybody do.
Yep. I know it's a hard question to spring on you without any warning, but yeah, I mean, like, you use that word releasing, and I'm thinking of that, and
Yeah,
I think that's a really good perspective to put on it with that word.
I know I do. If I've been at parties with the theme,
Hmm.
then it's more noticeable, maybe
Hmm.
for me at least.
Hmm.
But the Viking thing, I kind of uh, the transition was kind of smooth because the first year I was just because after Borre Viking Market, I just had to see every other market I could go to
Yeah,
because I
yeah.
was really into it. So, and the next year I was in Viking myself.
Hmm.
I was so lucky that I got gifted clothes, and I traded clothes and equipment with the photos, and
Hmm.
suddenly I was really good equipped. I just had to buy a tent. Uh, yeah, I was really lucky.
Oh, that
And
is.
from year two, I was in the thing.
Yeah, man, that is so cool to hear. So in this process, then I guess we can get into the music side of it. You've
Mhm.
brought us through how, I don't know if they're lining up the way that we've just gone through the conversation, or if it's just a coincidence, but you said that you ended up taking a break from music, or at least music sort of fell to the background for a few
Yeah,
years. Um,
that's much
yep.
because of the camera.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
It's,
there's only so much time in the day.
yeah.
So was this sort of what got you out of that, where you sort of took music off the shelf to
No,
re-engage with it, or?
at all the markets, at least most of the markets, they on when the market is closed on Friday and Saturday, or Friday or Saturday,
Hmm.
there'll be a party, a big party with all the Vikings,
Hmm.
and there will be entertainment, bands playing, people singing, telling stories. So I kind of witnessed this through every market, and the seeds started sprouting maybe, and uh, and I knew Hilde.
Hmm.
She was in Borre Viking, what do you call it? Team, lag, team,
Yeah.
uh, and Thomas Hallberg was in Borre Viking lag, and Birgitta Bibi. She's now in Friggs Døtre.
Hmm.
Uh, she was so we started. We I remember the exact moment, the second when everything just opened up. We were at the Viking Market in Sarpsborg
Hmm.
uh, on a Saturday night, probably, and sitting next to each other and listening to some singing. And suddenly we just looked at each other and said, "We can do this." And
It's so
then it
nice when it's
started.
that easy.
Yeah. So we started something called Borre eh, Vi- Borre Viking og Sanglag. Altså Borre Viking and Song Group.
Okay.
Uh, with that in mind to play at markets.
Hmm.
So we picked up some medieval songs and started rehearsing. But I had always had from from that second when we figured this out, I just thought I need to make this music. I need to make
Mm-hmm.
Viking music.
Yeah, yeah.
So I started making music, and on one of the rehearsals with the Viking and song group, there was only us four,
Mm-hmm.
Thomas, Birgitta, and me. And I presented my idea. I said, I'm going to start a band, and I really want you to be a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where when we started playing music that we made. I
Gotcha.
started making music, and we started rehearsing our music in addition to the market music.
Okay. Yeah, so there are actually like three places I want to go with this.
Mm.
Um, so I guess the first one would be you have an amazing voice. All right. If I can fawn over you for a second, you have a really strong singing voice that just reminds me of you just have the control of your voice that people usually have from being formally trained in singing. So we going over your background in music, singing didn't come up, but you're a pretty strong singer. So was there any, part of your upbringing or anything where you were taking singing lessons or anything like that? Or
No,
has singing just always been a thing you've done?
I think so from the day I found my mother's guitar.
Okay.
And I
So
always sang on Johnny Cash and Elvis, and yeah, when we were driving a car.
mhm. Because I know in Norway, there's a very strong choral culture, where a lot of kids growing up will pretty much spend a lot of time growing up singing in choir or chorus or something like that. And I was wondering if that was where that came from, but no, you're just singing along with Johnny Cash.
Yeah.
Just a lifetime of experience. That's yeah, no, because that's been nagging at me because I've been wondering, whenever I listen to Eldrim, is like, where did this guy learn how to sing? But it was just through experience. Yeah.
Yeah, but and it changed really when I sang in the earlier bands.
Mm-hmm.
Just at least the metal band, I made the lyrics, and it was more of the angry. I didn't use well. It was my natural voice, but not in the
Mm-hmm.
same way as I do now.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
now it's just don't I don't tend to distort my voice. I just sing the sound that comes out,
Yep.
and I find it uh, maybe more. I think I'm more in contact. My voice is more in contact with my inner self, if that's possible to say.
Yeah, yeah. No, no. I mean, that makes sense. I mean, that's that intuition thing again. You can't really explain it. It just is.
Yeah. And yeah, I think Eldrim has made my voice better.
Yeah. You practice.
Uh, yeah.
No, no, that's cool. So that solves that for me. I was always so curious. And then so two more actually the longer I think about this, the more questions I have. So I guess when you say that you took medieval songs when you guys started playing, I'm always fascinated to hear where your generation got their musical influence from. Names that commonly come up are Harold Foss and Garmarna Hedningarna, um,
Yeah.
Trio Medieval. These groups come up pretty often. Um,
Yeah.
are there any bands or musicians in particular that early on you were using as sort of like that standard to strive for when you were trying to make medieval or Viking market music?
No, I think we maybe we picked songs other people used
Mm-hmm.
when they entertained at the medieval and Viking markets. So we just
Ah,
and
okay.
yeah, I think we just picked the standard of
So
Viking.
yeah, no. So what you're saying is there was like a standard repertoire that these musicians are playing at these gatherings in the after hours.
Yeah,
And you were sort of taking it not from like, oh, I listened to this album and there was the song on it that I want to do. It was more like, no, this guy played this song last week and I want to learn it.
yeah,
Ah,
that's the
that
way
is
it
so
was.
cool, man. That's folk culture. That's folk culture. So,
Yeah.
there's really something to that, man. But were there would there be any bands or musicians that you would mention as, maybe you were listening to, or at least listened to a little bit later, that were doing kind of similar music, that you would call maybe influences or inspirations to you in some way?
You're thinking of the medieval thing now,
Yeah, yeah.
or
Or any in general, honestly, like musicians or bands that were sort of influential on you. I know we already mentioned Johnny Cash and the stuff you listened to growing up. Yeah.
I think my most brutal awakening was when I heard Tool for the first time.
Another Tool fan. We Ruben Terlau. He was very self-conscious mentioning
Yeah.
Tool on the podcast. No, cool. So we've added one to the team.
Yeah, they were warming up for Rage Against the Machine in Oslo in '93.
Amazing. Okay.
Yeah. And I never heard of Tool.
Yeah.
I was standing with my beer in my hand when they started, and I was just like, "What the, what, 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 what the fuck? What is he doing?" And suddenly, that during, I think maybe midway in that first song, it just like a bulldozer just crushed my chest, and I sat down with my beer and listened to the concert. I didn't have a sip of the beer, and Rage Against the Machine could just go home. So it was, yeah, I really felt it's, I connected so deeply with
Mhm.
their music. Yeah.
The reason I love it when especially musicians such as yourself are like very open about, your music inspirations not necessarily being like what people would expect, right? Is
Mm.
sort of like bringing up the point that, having these awakenings in music exist in all genres. Um,
Yeah.
and I think it's just important for that perspective that like even people, I know how it goes because of running this channel. People see musicians such as yourself, they imagine that you live in the woods in a hut, cut off, you don't listen to anything, you don't have a radio even. And I think it's a much needed perspective to be like, no, Espen Winther loves Tool. Like that was his
Yeah.
awakening.
Yeah.
No, man, cool, thanks for sharing that. And so the
And it
toggle.
and
Oh yeah, yeah.
I just want to add, it actually made my musical life a little more difficult because nobody gets up there. Nobody else will reach that point. There are no longer, the tool is no longer on up here, but nobody will ever, I think,
Mm-hmm.
reach that point.
It's a kiss and a curse, is what we would say in English when
Yeah, yeah,
you're like, wow, this band's so amazing that now I respect myself even less as a musician because I can't achieve that. It's a very known feeling. I get it. Yeah. So so I guess that if we can then pivot back to sort of the beginning of Eldrim and you getting involved in these markets.
Mm.
Two questions I still have are, where did the toggle harpa come into play? Because you and the toggle harpa are almost one and the same at this point when people, Google one or the other. And then also I want to cover just like, you said that you had this feeling that I want to do this, I want to make a band. Um,
Mm.
so whichever one comes first, I guess. Did you pick up the toggle harpa and then Eldrim came around, or was it Eldrim and then toggle harpa?
No, it was first, Eldrim came first.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
Uh,
So then my question would be, when you were just talking about, you just had this need within you to make a band, even though you already had a group, right, that you were playing with, you needed a band. And I guess I'm wondering, what was the inspiration, or was there a specific reason why you had that feeling that you can identify, that made you say, I need to make this? Because usually it's like a creative vision, it's an idea to fill a niche in music that only you feel like you can feel. Yeah, anything off of why you felt the need to start a band, such a strong need.
uh, the part of Eldrim that started to play at markets, and it was for entertainment and dancing and joy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm more of a, I mean, I'm a happy guy, but
Yeah.
I'm a happy guy because I can root my melancholy and sadness and darkness in my music. So I needed some place to do that. And
Mm-hmm.
of course, Vardruna was in the picture, and they
Mm-hmm.
had this dark, atmospheric, something nobody else had.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I didn't want to start a copy band,
A cover band? You didn't want to do a Vardruna
uh,
cover band?
another cover band. But I needed to play, and I wanted it to be easy.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to be easy to listen to.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want that big movie
Mm-hmm.
music production. Uh, and I presented the idea to the other guys, and they fell along with it, and we started and experimenting with making music, and I think the first song we made that really got me, oh, this is the thing, is called Atterganger.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and Birgitta made she just stood there picking on her lyre,
Mm-hmm.
and I keep going, and I took the microphone and put on some, I don't know what you call it when you just make sounds and
Improvise.
no, yeah, no
Yep.
words, melody, and I think that song came about in 20 minutes. And I think I
Mm-hmm.
love that song. I still love that song. That's the. It's got the darkness. It's got the melancholy. It's got the anguish, and it's got everything I wanted in one song.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, now
then we
next time
start.
I listen to it, I'm gonna have a whole different perspective on it. Knowing that it's Espen's baby.
Sadly, Birgitta quit the band
Mm-hmm.
not very long after. So, but she has her own thing now, so
Mm-hmm.
going.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think she misses us.
Oh yeah, I'm sure the feeling's mutual. So I think that what you just said about melancholy is really going to resonate with people across genres. Because what you just said is a very common thing you hear in heavy metal, right? That old adage that why are metalheads the happiest people. I never trust those studies, but people love sort of reinforcing that idea, right? That
Yeah,
because you know how to root yourself in those feelings that are associated with negativity, the importance of finding a way to express or to root those feelings so you can go about your day and not become a psycho. I think there is something to that, right? But specifically what you talk about in this style of music, where you sort of have this divide between entertainment and art, really is kind of
yeah,
like the divide. I'll use those words even if they're not perfect, right? But there is that, and I talk about it too because I know you watch some of the videos I do where the need for all of dark folk to be melancholy and all that, and I've always sort of seen this weird divide where there are bands like Virulai where
mm,
they're very festive, very upbeat, and they're fun to listen to, but they over time that side of the genre has kind of gone down a little bit, sort of been people aren't listening to it as much anymore. And I think there was something to what you said that also Kati Round brought up when I was talking to her about how maybe it's just because of the times we're living in. Things are,
mm,
you're sort of feeling less and less of a reason to celebrate
yeah.
and more of a reason to be a little melancholy.
But I think I always done it,
Mm-hmm.
and I think maybe when I first heard Sex Pistols with their dark lyrics,
Yeah.
I think maybe that started something, and then Motorhead came along with, mm, it's rock and roll, but the lyrics are really dark,
Yeah.
and so I kind of stuck to that. And I was in the first wave of black metal with Venom. They
Mm-hmm.
stuck the darkness in their lyrics,
Mm-hmm.
so I really like that. And Tool just
Yeah.
yes, take everything I have.
Yeah, it's
My
funny,
soul.
you put two bassists in a room. How long is it going to take for us to bring up Motorhead and then Tool? Like, it's not going to take long, right? No, so this is Espen. Thank you for sharing all this. I just knew that in going through like those four extra questions I had, that like there was a lot there to sort of weave together, and yeah, I think it gives a lot more perspective into sort of why Eldrim came about. And there's also something valuable to what you said, where Vardruna was doing their thing, but Vardruna does have this very expansive cinematic
Yeah,
atmosphere to it. And what you said about the importance of having something a little bit more easy to listen to, and not in a bad way, just more intimate or more down to earth or grounded. Um, I like that you and other musicians have created that spectrum that this music
yeah,
can fit into. That spectrum between, do you want to go into the cinematic, or do you want to go into the four musicians playing around a campfire?
yeah.
And yeah, so that makes a lot of sense now, going back and thinking about my experience first listening to Kvilla was very much in that. It's like it's Vardruna but closer,
Mm.
right? Yeah.
And suddenly Heidum came along and, filled the hole nobody knew
Yeah.
existed. What the fuck happened here?
And
And
did you know them before?
and I knew Maria and Christopher and
Mm-hmm.
Kai a little bit
Yeah, yeah.
from Viking markets, because
Mm-hmm.
Kai used to tattoo, do his hand poking at
Mm-hmm.
Viking markets, and Maria and Christopher was singing and entertaining. So yeah, I
What
knew them.
what was that like for you? Because because a lot of people have that same feeling with Heilung. We're not going to turn this into a Heilung interview, right? But like, I'm always curious because so many people have that feeling the exact way that you just worded it. You are killing it with the quotable lines here today. Like they filled a hole no one knew existed. What was that like for you? But you knew them. Like seeing people you
Oh,
know fill that hole that no one knew they needed or existed.
I wasn't I wasn't surprised because they're a great music.
Yep.
So when I think they were really lucky with the first concert because it
Mm-hmm.
was filmed in
Yeah, yeah.
perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
So and they deserve all the good things they can get because
Yeah, yeah.
they're a great people.
Oh, it's good to hear, man. They've got the Espen Winther endorsement. Yeah, so where does the toggle harpa come in for you?
That's the reason, because we didn't have any instruments to play the deep drone.
Mm-hmm.
There are no bass instruments,
Yeah.
so I made one. Uh, yeah, I didn't know how to, because I couldn't afford buying one, and
Mm-hmm.
nobody made one. So I drew drew a plan and made my first instrument. That became quite popular.
It really did. And it also, I if you want to say anything about this, I know it's also kind of controversial with the more trying to use a diplomatic word here.
Hmm.
The the more purist approach to reenactment or historical instruments. I will see it come up often enough for people like, this isn't what a toggle harpa was. That's sort of like inaccurate, as if that was your goal in the first place.
Yeah,
And it's, I think it's makes a lot of sense for me that you're a bass player, you're playing this type of music, you want that low register, so you just made it yourself.
yeah.
Um, what sort of experience do you have with sort of clashing with the more purist approach to music making or instrument building, if you have any to share?
Yeah, I don't really care because I think because I'm a musician, I'm an artist, I can do anything I want.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not representing some part of history. I'm not pretending to represent a part of history. I wanted that sound in my band, so I I got
So
that
you
sound.
made it. No, I mean that's so important because I have look, I'm not going to use Facebook comments as like indicative of like everyone's opinion, right? But I have seen some really unhinged comments about how like the null toggle harpa has like ruined the history of the toggle. I'm sitting there like, what the fuck is happening here? And it's just very interesting to me the reaction that, because reenactment is important, right? Like the more historically based stuff, I would never say that that's not important or anything, but it's always interesting to me seeing how the two clash between
Yeah,
reenactments and people making modern things inspired by historical things.
I I just think that I understand why people want to keep things in a traditional way,
Mm-hmm.
but the things they don't see is that if some, let's say, a metal dude or girl enjoys that video of that unhistorical instrument, maybe they will make one or try to get one, and then they will fixate closer and closer on the historical ways and traditional ways of doing things. So by renewing old instruments or traditions, you will capture people that will eventually go back and enjoy the historical way of doing things.
And that's the dance between traditional and new, right? Is like, this is why I always say on this channel that they need each other. We need the more traditional reenactors or historians to sort of like keep the record straight, right?
Yeah.
But we also need the people doing the more innovative, progressive things and trying new things that get new people to come into some sort of interest or relationship with the history in the first place. Because if you don't have a way to get people to give a shit, it's just gonna stay in like that very small niche of like historical reenactors or something like that.
Yeah.
It's part of that dance where both sides need each other, and that is a hill I will die on doing this channel.
We wouldn't have Jimi Hendrix if we should be purists.
Beautifully put. I think that's where we'll end it, but I don't think we can totally end it because that's not the only controversial bit of that video, huh? Because as I mentioned earlier, so yeah, I have to tell you my experience with that video. I remember the dorm. I remember the dorm room in college that I was sitting in, and it was me and another music major, one of my best friends, both total dorks. We're always learning about new instruments and all this. And I remember that video came up, and I was already into Vikings and stuff because I loved Amon Amarth and all of that. And I just remember this came up, and my roommate and I both sat there and watched the video in silence. We were like, this is one of the coolest things I've ever seen. And now it's kind of weird that 10 years later I'm talking to you on my podcast. Now that I actually think about that, that's kind of poetic. But our reaction was just, that was awesome. Let's watch it again. And that's that. So for me now, to like 10 years, 12 years later, however long it's been at this point, to see the various different kinds of reactions to it,
Yeah.
That's the type of reaction that artists dream of sometimes, to do one work of art, right? So the other bit of controversy is the necklace, the cross,
necklace. Yeah? Oh man.
Do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, sure, but I'm not the person that get pissed by stupid comments or non-historical comments, because when you love Viking, you should know about the history of the Viking Age, and then you should know that much of it was Christian. So to blend a cross with a hammer, it shouldn't be any problems if you're interested in Viking Age history.
I mean, one of my favorite things to teach, when I used to teach the Viking history class here at CU, my favorite thing was to teach the students about, there was this one smith, he might have been in Iceland or Norway, where he had a cast on one side for Mjolnirs, but if you flipped it over, he had one for crosses, meaning that like whoever was in town, he would just flip it and try. He was like, oh, got crosses. Oh, not into that. All right, I've got Mjolnirs. That really shows, that religious hybridity. But I guess to bring people up to speed, right, what the controversy is, you're in this, people click on it thinking it's Viking stuff, and then they see you playing this instrument dressed up in the garb, but then you have the cross, and a lot of people have this idea that those two are mutually exclusive.
And I'm not religious, but I know if I was on a plundering, a pillaging with my Viking brothers, I would steal crosses. I would steal anything that gleamed in the sun. So I wouldn't care if it was a cross or what the fuck. And I'm not religious. I don't believe anything almost, I think. But when you're interested in Viking stuff and you get intimidated by a cross, you don't know about Viking history.
That was a really beautiful way to put it. If you're into Vikings and you're scared of a cross, maybe you're not really maybe you're not as much of a Viking as you thought you were. Oh, that's beautiful. I think we've beat up on those people enough, but I will say the amount of responses that one video triggered, I think actually says a lot to it being a good work of art.
Yeah, and I think it's because when Thomas and I made the video, we
Mm-hmm.
didn't think about it. Yeah, because it's, in our opinion, a quite narrow sound, a quite narrow video with
Mm-hmm.
quite narrow interests area. Of,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and it just blew blew up.
Yeah, and even weirder, I think, is like, first off, I'm actually still having trouble wrapping my head around the fact that I'm now friends with you. Like, like juxtaposing those memories, like
Yeah,
of like being the dumb like 19-year-old, 20-year-old, however old I was, watching that, not knowing like, hey, you'll be talking to him in like a few years. God, that's weird. Um, but the other thing to me is like, how does it feel to you when Classic FM shares it? Did you even know that they were doing that, or did they sort of just start sharing it? The classical website or radio, whatever they technically are, they'll occasionally
yeah,
share the clip and be like,
yeah,
"This is a real Viking instrument," and then they get you in a little bit of trouble when they say that.
yeah.
Yeah. So what is that like? Like, do they ask or do they just share it? Or
I don't. I think they asked, but
okay.
I didn't know about Last FM, so
Mm-hmm.
or I didn't know about. So yeah, just go ahead, use it.
Yeah, I still
So,
remember seeing it in like the clip. I was like, "Hey, there's Espen," and then it's like, "Espen, or this man is playing a real Viking Age instrument." And I'm like, "Oh no, oh no,
yeah,
no!"
this will not end well.
And then me, I know how press works. I know how journalism works. I know you have no say in what they do,
No,
right?
no.
And those are not your words. But I can see someone who's already typing angry comments on Facebook about how you ruined the toggle harpa. See Classic FM share that, and they're like, their heads just explode in rage.
Really, I couldn't ruin any Viking history about the Tagararpa because there aren't any.
Oh man,
No,
you're
because
asking for
there are,
trouble.
no, I'm not saying they didn't play Tagararpa, but there are no evidence that they did.
Yep. We've talked about that quite a bit.
Probably they did.
I think it's very likely.
I
But
think
yeah, I
it's
mean,
very likely they did. I think it's more likely than throat singing.
oh, let's kick that wasp nest while we're at it. Yeah, I mean, because like, and that's sort of where I am, where on one hand, I don't think archaeology should be the final say on everything.
No.
Archaeologists have sort of convinced everyone that they are for long enough, and I'm kind of tired of it. But at the
Mm,
same time, there are no toggle harpers from the Viking Age, but there are
no.
fiddles. And then on top of that, if you look at the literature and arts, it's just there's very little of it until that Trondheim cathedral figurine.
Mm.
But again, just because we haven't dug one out of the dirt, which would be highly unlikely anyway. Yeah,
Just
there's
like
no
drums.
just like drums. There's no evidence to it, but that doesn't mean that it wasn't. Like it's anyway. Yeah, that's a whole different conversation that would derail the talking of the album.
They traveled around, and I think they took inspiration or took the physical instruments with them home.
Yes.
So I think very likely they played and used tagladpa, and
Mm-hmm.
but there is no evidence.
Exactly. No, cool. So I'm so glad that I remembered to talk to you about that because that would have been a bummer if we got to the end and I was like, wait, the toggle harpa. Would have been a little bummed because that, as I said, you're kind of the face of the toggle harpa on the internet, and hearing you get to sort of like speak for yourself, I think is really important because people will put those narratives on you instead, the same way that Classic FM does or the angry reenactors will, or anything like that.
And the same there, since there are no evidence of any tagladpa, mine is correct.
I love it. Gavel down. All right. Beautiful. Beautiful. Is it time to talk about Daudarstev?
We can talk about anything you want.
All right. Hell yeah, man. I'm not going to take full advantage of that. But yeah, I would love to start talking about the album because sort of like the special thing we're doing here is this interviews sort of planned to come up before the album even comes out, sort of like as a teaser for people who are sort of like anticipating it and want to hear more about it before they listen to it, if they so choose. So sort of just to get the podcast listeners on the same page, Espen has been so awesome to sort of like send me the raw mixed sound files of the album, and I've been listening to them the last 2 weeks, really diving in, and we're all in for a treat here, but I don't want to turn this into total fawning over you endlessly. I will just say that like it's solid music, and I'm really looking forward to talking to you about sort of like going on a track by track, for people to sort of like get a teaser for what they're into with each song. Um, so I guess before we talk about the specific songs, though, your last album is from 2020, and this is Kvila. Yeah.
2019, I
Oh,
think.
2019. Cool.
Yeah,
So
I think, and then we had a single later.
oh, gotcha. Okay, yeah. So it's been 4 or 5 years. Been a
Too
long
long.
time. Yeah, been a long time between, but a lot happened between 2020 and now. So everyone gets a pass. So going into Daudarstev, was there anything you learned in the process of doing Kvila that you applied to doing Daudarstev, or was there anything in particular that you wanted to do differently between the two albums? Really, anything that you want to talk about if you were to compare the two experiences of creating and recording and writing Daudarstev compared to Kvila?
Uh, we recorded Kvile, our first album, at our rehearsal.
Mm-hmm.
We hung up carpets and thing to dampen the sound, and we
Yeah.
could not record if it was raining or blowing. And, Kvile is a really basic, simple album,
Mm-hmm.
and I, I think it sounds good. I think it sounds almost naive,
Okay.
uh, but it's. I think it. I think we kind of found our safe place.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, we have now. It's a little bit bigger because we have added some more instruments and drones, so electrical things, uh, and a little bit deeper tones. Yeah, but it's as melancholy. It's as sad. It's as dark.
Well, yeah, because the name of the album is Song of the Dead, right?
Yeah,
I mean, like
yeah,
that's pretty a very straightforward way of saying this is what you're gonna listen to.
yeah. And it kind of the name of the album is it came from it came from a song, of course, because it's about the guy on the cover.
Mm-hmm.
I have blown. I have. It's official. The cover is official. So
Awesome.
uh, that guy is walking around and playing people into his lyre. So
Ooh,
he all people, all souls fly into his lyre. So he keeps the dead people with him all the time.
holy shit, dude, that's amazing. So I gotta tell you, I don't know if you don't strike me as much of a video game player, but I've got to tell you that like when we first saw the album cover, all my friends, me and Alyssa, we looked at it, we were like, this is Bloodborne. There's a video game called Bloodborne, and it's very gothic, dark
Okay.
fantasy. And like straight up, that was the theme I got. And now with you telling me the story behind the image, on top of me already associating it with just like one of the darkest video games made in like the last 10 years, that's metal as hell, dude. And it reminds me of the German legend of Der Leiermann, which is the an old hurdy-gurdy player that sits on the street, and if you walk by, you might be the next one that the hurdy-gurdy claims. There's that old legend around it too. There's so many layers to that, dude. Thanks for sharing that.
And I think there may be more legends with people with
Oh
instruments
yeah.
playing,
Mm-hmm.
gathering
Yeah.
souls.
Mm-hmm. That's just the
So
first that came to mind.
yeah, so yeah, that's the package. Everything
What
dies.
inspired that?
If when the song was finished, I
Mm-hmm.
had an idea for a video that I will not tell, I think, because
Yeah,
if the
yep.
video,
You got to keep some secrets.
yeah, because the video will be amazing if what's in here will come out.
Yeah, yep.
But then, yeah, he is a kind of figure who comes to a little place where with one house and a little bonfire, and a younger girl tending to her old mother who is about to die, and he just walks into and sits down in front of the bonfire and starts playing his lyre.
Mm-hmm.
And that's and I just, oh man, that's a good story.
No, man, no, that's awesome. No, because that's so evocative. There's a lot there in the imagery and the story behind it. And that's
Yeah.
definitely selling the melancholy of it.
So that's the guy walking into that towards that little house on the cover.
God damn, that's metal, dude. All right, no, I am even more stoked on it now. So that was sort of the creative vision then, is the idea of this character sort of wandering through and gathering souls in his instrument.
Yeah.
Amazing. So awesome. So let's talk about the actual tracks here. Do you want to just go through them in the order that sort of like I've had them in, or have you guys sort of decided on a different song order?
Oh yeah, we have, but I don't remember it
Okay.
right now.
Oh, it's all good, man. I mean, like we can just go through the songs as is then, if that's all right with you.
Yeah, yeah.
Underlig talesång Jodig brann
All right, cool. Yeah. So then the first track we got to talk about is Anna. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Aner.
Anne?
Aner.
Anna. Okay, I'll get it eventually. The nuances of Norwegian still escape me. When it's written down, I think I can speak it, and then it comes out of my mouth. I'm like, nope, let's put that back in.
If you put two R's on the ending, it will be easier for you to say it.
Anna. Oh, cool. There we go. So this means spoken song, right?
Aner, but it means the word means family or kin
Oh, okay.
or predecessors or yeah,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
really.
when I was listening to this song, what really struck me is that is Hilda's voice, right? Her
Mm.
voice amazing in this track. And then also the way that you guys finish it with a lock or a kulning. Um,
It's Hilde's song and Hilde's lyrics.
mhm.
She wrote it for her daughter.
Oh, that's
Uh,
beautiful.
she's got a daughter with several uh, issues. She doesn't have a real language, so
Okay.
she does make a lot of sounds in various tones and motions.
Mm-hmm.
So that's her Hilde's this description of it's a lullaby for her daughter.
Ah, this is why I love talking about individual songs because there's always so much that are just in one, right? Because it's easy to like when you're listening to songs, they're 3 to 5 minutes. It's easy for it to just go in and out, and then you're on to the next one. Like taking the time to actually dive into what each track has in it, you're forgetting that months can go
Yeah.
into just creating a single song. That's like a whole world in and of itself, and especially
It-
what. Oh yeah, yeah, you go.
it's it was a really hard track to make
I can
because
imagine.
it's a lullaby. The only important thing is Hilda's voice in that song.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so it's hard to really put instruments on it, drums on it, or choir on it. So it was a lot of discussion around that song, but I
Mm-hmm.
think it turned out quite nice. It's a
I mean,
beautiful song.
yeah, I mean, I have to limit myself to how many I say are my favorite because I tend to like to say every song's my favorite, dude. But I will say, out of the two that I let myself pick, Anna was my is one of the two that I've picked as my favorite tracks. Like especially the way it ends with the lock or the cooling or whichever term people are more familiar with. It was I can feel the power behind that song very much. So what I love about this track, right, is you have the guttural toggle harpa, but then the low chorus that is under your voice, like your voice really shines on this track in particular. And I also love the way that you guys incorporate the lyre and the flute, sort of like the way that you guys orchestrate it all together. So that's my piece. So that's what I'll say about the song. Is that's what I really enjoy about it. I love that, you know, right out the gate we get the toggle harpa that we love your music for, your very powerful baritone voice, and then just the beautiful orchestration with the instruments. So you sort of already talked about the background of the song by talking about the album, though. But is there anything else you want to say about this song in particular before we move on to the next one?
Yeah, I tend to write about death and suffering and loss of things, and this song is really about the diseases they were facing without any possibility of escaping. So it starts with listen now, because there's some disease going around, and the first one that will notice will perish. That's the first verse, I think.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
if it's me, that's the yeah.
It very much reminded me of that. I'm not going to say this is you because I don't want to get you in trouble with the whole idea of cultural appropriation. But like when I first heard this song, I heard very much a lot of the whole call to prayer from that whole tradition of musical prayer from the Middle East, where it sort of starts with like that soaring melody to get everyone's attention, especially with that opening lyric, "Listen." Like that very much said to me like almost like going to like some religious gathering, or you're listening to a preacher or something like that. It really sold the atmosphere on that for me.
Yeah, when I write songs, I see the song, so it's like a small movie. So it's a guy. It's a one guy in a small village gathering all the people together to warn them for the coming disease.
Mm-hmm. Awesome, man. All right, so then up next we have Endaor. The end of years. So yeah, you just say you talk about death and apocalypse and all that. This was easily the most like eerie song on the album for me. Like it set this tone of like discomfort or like something is impending. And then I love it when the drums come in. Like that when that beat kicks in, it sort of like had me, you know, just like really, really into it. And then like towards the end, you use the toggle harpa to like make this wailing sound, like crying out, dude. I loved that.
Thomas is playing the toggle harpa on that track.
Okay.
Yeah, it's to get the panicky, eerie, uncomfortable place.
You sold it.
Before. Yeah. Buy it.
Yeah, but there's the sales pitch. Oh, expertly placed, Espen. You should work in marketing. No, but like seriously, the way that you know that I beat this dead horse all the time is like how people settle a little too much with what they will do on the toggle harpa without sort of experimenting or going further. And so that whole thing where you guys use it in the same way that like you brought up Jimi Hendrix earlier, the way Jimmy would play the guitar when he was doing the national anthem, you know, you're using the toggle harpa to sort of like do a wailing sound to really sell the whole story behind the song.
Yeah, and I think both because now Thomas plays all the toggle harpas. I just play the lyre and some other flute and the lure.
Yeah.
So Thomas plays, and his go-to toggle harpa is, I think it sounds so great. He is the one he uses on most tracks, and then he uses my Gnord. I think the sound they make, it's at least our instruments are not made for playing fast. It's made for making, to keep the energy and the darkness in the song.
And I think that that's really important, that you guys sort of know what it does and what it does best without trying to sort of like push it to do something that it's not really made to do. Because
I wouldn't be able to play traditional because my fingers aren't moving that fast. So,
but also those big loose strings, they are not going to shred. Like, but the upside is, because you know what you want out of your toggle harpa, you can make it so that it can accomplish that very well. Because the whole time I'm listening to this album, I'm thinking to myself, how does this toggle harpa sound so clean? I mean, like, it has that guttural punch that you want to it, but it sounds crisp. Like, it's really a good quality instrument, and you guys knew how to record it. So there's a lesson there for. Yep.
I think I was very lucky when I picked the materials for the instruments, and Thomas Toggerharpe also sounds amazing. So
yeah, awesome, man. And so I guess tying this one with the next one up, Faye, you sort of, between these two songs, you are using a lot of cattle imagery.
In Fair, Fair is more about not trying to make yourself shine more than you really do. There's a couple of songs that has the same thematics, because it's weighed. Fair means value. It means wealth. It means cattle or things you own. And the first sentence is it cannot be weighed. No, it is being weighed of your own, what you are. That's the first sentence. So, and I think it's an important message. Don't try to shine more than you do, because everybody sees through the shining. So.
There's some nihilism here. Would you say?
Maybe. Just try to get it out, man.
Oh, I love that. No, because these themes of, like, you're covering death and disease and the end of the world, and at the same time you're also like, don't shine more than you do. I'm seeing like these undertones of nihilism, which is an interesting thematic undertone to have in this music scene, because I don't see nihilism come up as an ideology a lot in the Viking music scene.
I just want, I don't know the idea, because it's a really simple 4 lines of lyrics. Or is it? How many?
I mean, yeah, 4, and then we were talking about Heilung earlier. Then you go into like the chant of all the words that reminds me of listening to. Actually, Heilung doesn't have sole ownership of that kind of thing, because Varjuna does plenty of it too. I think enough musicians in this scene do that, where the chanting the words over and over again to the rhythm that is inherent to the words. And I will say that is a typical trait of this music that I think a lot of people really love listening to. And so when this song kicked up into that chant, I was like, yeah, there we go, we got it.
It's because it starts with don't be more than you, don't wish to be more than you, don't try to show off more than you are, don't also just keep it fucking simple. And then we just start off with the drums and the futhark. And I think that it's that's the connecting thing, the repeating of the futhark.
Yep, very much so. Yeah, man, I love it. This was great track. I love the chanting. It really it adds an energy, because a lot of the album is melancholic, and so it's nice to have those moments in between of like, oh, cool, bang in my head now.
Yeah.
So the next one we've got. Oh nope, if you want to say something more.
It's hard to. It's because when I sit down with a lyre, it's impossible to write something with power.
Yeah,
So
it's difficult, but you ended up doing that in the track that was my favorite. But we'll get to that. We will get to that. So next up, you've got Frid or Frith, however you're pronouncing it. In this one, the long E. Oh, Fried. Cool. Thank you for the correction. So this one opens with the prayer bowl, which that sort of shakes things up from the typical lyre opening that opens a lot of these tracks. What I really love in this is if I'm remembering correctly, you have double tracked lyres, one in the right ear and one in the left ear, that's weaving very well with Hilda's voice. And then also very lyrical toggle harpa playing, as if someone were singing it instead. Yeah, so that was my favorite part of this track would be, the interplay between Hilda's voice and the two lyres. Very beautiful.
We have been very uncertain about the lyres on that track because also it's quite intense, but yeah, it's hard to listen to a song 1,000 times and how does it
so, no, I thought it was nice, because a lot of the album is one lyre. If I'm remembering correctly, a lot of the album is one lyre. But in this one, when you suddenly have two and they're sort of weaving between each other in the lines that they're doing, I thought it was a really nice use of two lyres. And Hilda's voice ties them together very well. But I know the feeling, man. You're listening to that song, you're mixing the 1,000th time, and you're like, does this suck? I can't tell if it sucks. I think it sucks. But then someone listens to it and they're like, no, man, that's dope. And you're like, I don't know what's real anymore. Why do I do music?
Yeah, and it's the album has taken so much time, so I kind of lost the connection to the whole recording thing. So, like, okay, what? Oh, so the mix is finished now. Okay, so the master is finished now. Yeah, okay. We'll see. We'll just cross. Fingers crossed, maybe someone will listen to it.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with that. Whenever I'm recording an album, I make sure that I get it done fast, or else I will lose steam on it. And because it's not my primary thing that I do, and I very much do music on the side, like perform music on the side, I just make sure that if I want to make an album, if I got an idea for an album, I got to get that done now, or else it's not getting done. So it's nice to hear that you have a similar thing where it's like, what did I do last year? Is this still on the album? Like, yeah, very common feeling. But no, I think it works very well.
Thank you.
Yeah, you got it, man. And so next up, another very anguished song, Kval. It sounds so. The word means agony. The song sounds like agony, dude. Like the toggle harper riff at the beginning is that very like very angry. But then what really stands out to me in this track is the call and response that you guys have going between the voices throughout the entire track. That was another thing that pops up that really sort of spices things up as you're listening to the album.
I think because originally I sang all the verses, but I think on maybe one rehearsal my voice kind of was sucked, so Christopher sang the other sentence. So and that's oh man, that's beautiful. So we kind of kept it that way. So, yeah,
fascinating. It's
Christopher has a beautiful voice. Yeah.
Yep.
So we kept the first verse like ping pong, and the second verse I sing alone with them, responding between. So yeah,
Yeah, very good use of all the wonderful voices in Eldrim on that.
Yeah,
It really
thank
helps
you.
that you're all great at singing.
And Kval is a quite a heavy song to perform,
Yeah, I can
uh,
imagine.
both vocally and mentally, maybe.
Mhm.
Uh, yeah, but I love the song.
So still unsure if it's going to be on the set list of Midgardsblot.
No, it will be on
Oh, it
set
will.
list.
Oh, you're going to force yourself through it. I like it. Commit. So next up,
Hmm.
this probably might not surprise you as the bird guy, but not to. Oh God, I'm really gonna have egg on my
No.
face for this. Not to Fjord.
Yeah.
Not okay. Cool. Uh, this was my favorite track by far. There's just so much for me to love in this. I mean, first off, the bird guy, you got a song about feathers and flapping your wings and ravens. I'm like, all right, cool. I'm here. This is my favorite track. But I actually didn't even notice this until I was listening to it the second or third time, which is why I wanted to bring it up. That harp or the lyre sounds like flapping wings. Is that intentional?
No, but now it is.
Dude, that's how musicology works. You'd be like, oh, is that what they mean? Yeah, why not? Like no, because like the opening line is no, it's in the second verse. Hold the beating of my heart and the dim flapping of your wings. It was when I was listening to the song while reading along with the English translation where I heard the da 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 da. Now, like, imagine the slow flapping of a raven because they have a very
Yeah.
slow pulse to their wing. So, okay, cool. No, you can steal that if you want to say that's how it
Yeah,
was to begin with.
it,
Yeah.
it is stone
Yeah.
already now.
What do you mean? I came up with that.
It was in the mail.
It was, yeah. Oh, beautiful. And then so you got the whole opening to me at least, and now I guess it's written in stone that the lyre sounds like flapping wings. But as sort of I'm sort of relaxing into the peaceful nature of the flapping, but then those drums kick in. It's like, nope, you're coming with us now. And it to me, like, this is the standout track on the album. Like, this is my favorite one that I know that I'm going to be listening to over and over again for a very long time.
Good to hear.
Yeah, man. Do you want to say? I've fawned over it. So do you want to say anything more about it?
It's just I I kind of love the lyrics.
Mm-hmm.
I like the desperation in the Bukkehorn, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think it's a good song.
It's a very good song. It's excellent, dude. Yeah. So then after that, we've got Oscar. Which means ash. Yeah. That's a trippy lyre line that you guys have in this one. It was very, very groovy. It's a little weird, but I loved it. Very, very needed. A lot of people, just like the toggle harpa, they pick up the lyre. They'll do whatever is the easiest thing to do at first because you're getting used to it. But then sometimes you forget to go farther than that. But in this one, that lyre line that opens it up is I'm sitting here like, what is this time signature? I'm getting like tossed around here a little bit. Yeah.
One is two. One is two.
Oh, it's so good. I love that. Yeah, it's very trance inducing, very trippy. But then I guess you brought up Motorhead earlier. The songs are rock and roll, but the lyrics are dark. I'm sitting here like grooving with this lyre line. I look at the lyrics, ash falling from the sky. Like, this is another song about apocalypse or some sort of tragedy happening.
This is actually Christopher singing. Oh, and the lyre. I think it's the only song Hilde and I plays exactly the same on our lyres.
Okay.
So it repeats the same. So you hear Hilde's lyre, and my lyre is playing the same.
I loved it.
The song is Christopher's song to his late wife. He just got the song. I wanted to keep one line and wrote the rest. And he came back with that. I think it's beautiful. It's sad because the roots of the song, and I think he captured some images in his sorrow.
I mean, in my notes here, when I'm listening to songs, for the purpose of like talking about it later or whatever, I've got this little notebook here that I just write words that come to my mind. And after trippy lyre line is mournful, because that's the only word that really stuck to me through while I was listening to it. Was this sounds like morning, with a U, morning, not the time of day. And so I'm just telling you, I didn't even know that backstory, and the one word that I have here is morning. So it communicates through the song in some way or another. Thank you for giving that backstory, because the other thing is just like the harmonies on this song I think are the best in the album. You guys really go into those vocal harmonies, and they're very well done, and you can tell a lot of attention is given to the way that they're written out.
Yeah, we try to put some energy in the vocal layers.
Yep.
Sometimes it is just a simple line. Sometimes everybody needs to sing here.
Yep.
Everybody.
It works. Yep, it works very well. Oh yeah, you start calling out to people in the guild hall, and you're just like, your turn. Like odd. Yeah, so that's a beautiful song. That one definitely leaves an impression on you. And that brings us to the last one of the album, Oss 2. Oss 2.
Yes.
Sounds to me like a prayer for forgiveness, or at least kind of like asking for forgiveness or something like that.
I think it's more of closure.
Closure, all right.
It's relationship ended. So, it's
a classic Viking music breakup song.
Yes. Oh no, that's the soft singer in Eldrim. No. Yeah, it's. I think it's a song of closure. To forget about us two. Things didn't go well. Forget about us two. That's the short.
short. No, I mean, like, it definitely has that sense of closure to it, and I actually, I'm assuming that this one will probably close out the album, but you never know. Like when you're actually listening to the tracks together, you never really know where they'll end up.
You're wrong, but
yeah, I don't marry myself to my ideas, but yeah, I mean, like, yeah, I know, I trust that you guys are gonna come up with whatever track list works best, because to me, I was more listening to these just as treating every song as its own thing. What does it lead me to and all that. And so yeah, by the end of the album, I told you, like, there was no filler when I was listening to this. A lot of times there'll be filler in albums just to make sure it hits 40 minutes. But in this, every song seems like it has intention behind it. And in particular, Not to Fear and Anar are just the two songs to me that just stood out as like my favorites. So I guess I'll pass the mic to you, man. If you want to talk about whatever song of all of them was sort of your favorite, or whichever one sort of like has the most weight behind it for you. I know it's kind of like choosing your favorite children at that point, but
yeah, but I think it's Daudarstev.
Yeah, very powerful song.
And Fe, because it in the end, I think it has so much power in the end.
Very much so.
I love playing it. and those are the two songs I love playing the most.
Hell yeah. Well, then now we'll all be watching you during those songs, knowing that you're just having the time of your life. Oh yeah, I mean, like, so that's Daudarstev, man. So for anyone who's listening, who sort of like was looking forward to the early teaser on the album, like there it is. But is there, before we move on to like sort of the last thing we'll talk about, is there anything you want to say about Daudarstev that we haven't gotten to yet? Any
I
loose
think
ends?
we have put a lot of energy in making it how we want it to sound.
Mm-hmm.
It has been lots of forth and back and up and down, and before having some kind of result we can be pleased with. I don't
Mm-hmm.
think anyone is really, really happy with it, but I'm not sure we could be. Uh, and
You're your own
it's
worst critics.
yeah, and now it's mastered, so I'll send you the mastered version tomorrow. I'm not sure if there's so much difference, but
Okay, because I've been interested, like, because what I've been listening to are those are not entirely raw, they're mixed, right? But like listening to those and wondering, like, ooh, what's this going to sound like in the end result? Like, what am I going to be listening to on Apple Music when this comes out?
yeah, I don't think there will be very much. It will not be revolutionary. The mastering thing, but as we have simple music,
Yeah.
the most important thing is in the mix, and now I don't want to mix anymore, so it's. I think we just want to put it out there now.
There would be a conversation worth having about that, because I've just found that, like, when as someone, I also do music, I put it out, and there's always like that weird feeling you have, that weird relationship that you can develop with your own music, where I feel like you and I might be very similar in this, where whenever I listen to the music that I put out, all I can hear when I listen to it is what I did wrong,
Mm.
or like what I would have wanted to be better. Um, and so like when people ask me about like the very first record I did with as Scuzzlebutt, and I'm just like, dude, I haven't listened to that album since I recorded it. I haven't. So I have a feeling, there's an interesting conversation to be had there for like how to deal with being your own worst critic.
Yeah, I think I don't think I have listened to the first album maybe once since 2019. I have listened to the long single we released called True, because
Mm-hmm.
I love that song.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost 10 minutes, but I love every second of it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Other than that, I don't listen to Eldrim much.
That is so crazy. Like people will be like, how does the Eldrim guy not listen to Eldrim? But it's complicated. It's a
Yeah,
complicated relationship you build with your own music the longer you work on it too.
yeah, and I like the making of music.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I'm looking forward to releasing the album. I'm looking forward to have been playing at Midgardsblot,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm looking forward to start making music together, because up till until now it's I have been making most of the songs
Mm-hmm.
and the lyrics, and kind of presented it to the rest of the band, and we have molded it and colored it together. But I really like to make music together,
Mm-hmm.
from so everybody can be a part of the deal. That's my good good times from all the bands I've been in, the
Yeah.
making of the music. And I really don't like. Okay, oh, when I wake up in the morning and I have an idea, I just have to record the rough stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I have the idea, but I want to make music together with the rest of the band.
Dude, I mean, like, that's exactly how I feel. Like, I'm saying, like, I hate recording. I, the whole mixing process, it gets so tedious after long
Yeah.
enough, especially the more layers you add to it. But I think like sort of the way you've explained about why you have that feeling, I think makes perfect sense to me. You know, if you, especially tying this all the way back to one of the very first things you said when we started this conversation, you play off of feeling and intuition. That's not how recording goes. You don't
No.
get to do intuition depending on your recording style, but it would make
And
sense to me why you have trouble with the recording and all of that when what you really want to be doing is making music with people.
yeah, and it really affects my voice because I'm not satisfied with any of the recordings because my voice does not sound the same
Yep.
in the studio as it does uh, when we're rehearsing. And the
Mm-hmm.
same with Hilde. We have really problems with the øreklokkene, the air clocks,
Yeah, yeah.
and because I don't get the music in the body, just my ears.
Yeah, I don't even sing in any of the music that I record, and because for whatever reason, whenever I get stressed or anxious or anything like that, my throat tightens up, and
Mhm.
so like my voice gets really strained. Like you can tell right now I'm chill. I get to talk to Espen Winther. My voice sounds normal, but the second I get stressed or anxious or anything like that, like I can't do my normal singing, which is why I don't even bother because I do not want to listen to myself fail at singing my own songs for for an entire
Uh,
album. You know.
I remember when I was singing in the metal band,
Mm-hmm.
when we were trying to record, I was just like, "Can we please tape a sub? I need a bass punching my body while singing." Because I didn't get the power out.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's very, very common feel. I'm glad we got to talk. Even though this is just you and me shooting the shit right now about recording and all that. It's nice to know that someone else feels the same way as me. I feel a little less crazy talking to someone else about it, or we're both crazy. Who
Yeah.
knows?
I wish every rehearsal could be recorded in all the tracks we needed. So every rehearsal was a studio setting, so we could keep the good things.
The golden age of recording. What I
Yeah.
wouldn't give to have that privilege, right? So, Espen, the last thing I wanted to talk to you about are two things really, and actually, no, one thing is it's both about Midgardsblot. So, first off, you guys are finally playing again, which is
Yeah.
awesome, and it definitely adds a lot of weight to you considering this is sort of where your journey with all of this, Viking reenactment and Viking markets and the style of music comes from. But I guess I think where I want to go with that is that question I teased about an hour ago at this point is as someone who sort of started their journey at the Buddha Viking market and now
Mm.
seeing what Midgardsblot has become,
Mm.
what is sort of like the biggest, I guess I'll just give you the mic. Like, where is there anything you want to talk about like how things have changed, or like, did you have any idea that in 10 years some American would be like talking to you on his podcast about the music you're doing, or the idea that people travel from all over the world to come see you and get their pictures taken with you? Like, that's got to be a weird feeling of like just how all of this stuff has blown up.
It's more. I'm not sure. I think it's weird, but it's really. I have been talking to people and crying because they came from. "Oh, we saw Eldrim on the poster and we ordered our plane tickets." What? What? So it's almost not comprehensible if you think, because it's not on my layer of idealism.
Yeah.
I
Like,
wouldn't do that to anyone for anyone. No, because I never had idols.
mhm,
I love music. I love the bands I love. I would go to Oslo to on a concert. I wouldn't go to New Zealand.
mhm,
So I find it's hard, and it really makes I cry when
yeah.
people tell me. I cry when I read the comments on YouTube. I cry, yeah, because if something I do can make people feel good or try to work with the bad things they feel, it really hits my yeah.
Because that's what it was all about for you in the first place, is sort of processing those negative emotions or rooting
Yeah.
yourself. Yeah.
and they find different levels than me. When I write my lyrics, I have my thoughts on them, and it can uh, take any direction. I see when I read the comments and listen to people that listen to my music, and this, whoa, I didn't think of that. Uh, that
Yeah,
is beautiful.
it's got to be crazy. Like, as you said, completely unexpected.
Yeah.
Like when you first started doing those Viking music groups around those camps, 12 years ago, I'm assuming you had no idea it would turn into what it is today. Yeah.
Oh, and I've never had any big ambitions of maybe when I was 16, but I don't think I've had any ambitions of being. It would be good to have some money when I play music. That would be good, but I would never think that I would write an autograph.
You
Never
greedy
in my
musician, you want money for your music?
What
Oh.
do you mean? We are friends on Facebook. I'll give you a beer.
And I'm also thinking, like, you're talking about how emotional it makes you to see these sort of responses. I think it says a lot because of the relationship that you have with your own music that we were just talking about, where it's actually not a perfect relationship. It's actually kind of a troubled one, right? And for you to like go through the emotional process of dealing with mixing, recording, and all of that, and then in the end, you have all these thoughts in your head, like, oh, does this suck? Am I bad? Why do I do this? And then someone else listens to it and like, dude, this is amazing. That I can see that giving a whole different layer of context to it for you, for why that does make you emotional, because sort of shows you like it wasn't all for nothing. You were doing it for a reason.
Yeah, we have a lot of work with. Also, we put a lot of energy and hours into making our music, uh, and if I write lyrics, it's not always directly about my situation or my mental state, but it's shaped by my situation and mental state. So
Mm-hmm.
I imagine situations, and I try to think of the how would this how would this how would they think of this 1,000 years ago? I've tried to put my
Mm-hmm.
my darkness into their even more dark life. Yeah,
Yeah.
so and if it connects with people, yeah, yeah, I've been shedding tears.
Oh well, it's well deserved, man. I mean, like it's great stuff, and I'm glad that you are getting the recognition and appreciation for the hard work that you guys put in. So seriously, well done, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how everyone sort of reacts to Daudarstev when it
Yeah,
finally comes out.
I'm not sure really if I just hope and cross my fingers.
Yeah, right. But I know it'll resonate with people. So, Espen, I've been keeping you hostage on Zoom for almost 2 hours now. This is the longest interview I have done in a very long time, and I
Two
have
hours?
I have no
Oh,
problem with it. But so I do have to let you go at some point. And so I guess what I will do here is I've got one last question for you, and that is sort of going back to the idea that you've been around for like over a decade, especially going to a place like Buddha, which has now become a pilgrimage space of sorts for people who are really into this culture and this music and everything. You've sort of like been at the place where you get to see this stuff grow and change and evolve in real time into this whole subculture that is now revolved around Viking music, or Viking, or Norse paganism or something like that. um, and so I guess the last question I would love to give you the floor on is, do you have anything that's like on your mind about Viking music, or just the way that people are, talk about it, or use it or listen to it, or what have you? Just any thoughts you have at all on what Viking music has become, or the idea of, anything about the sound or how people talk about it, anything. I would just love to give you the opportunity to speak your mind as someone who has become the toggle harpa guy.
and I'm the least professional player of Daudarstev
Oh, I've heard
ever.
way less professional, so don't worry. You are fine.
Yeah, I think uh, I think Vardruna opened a big Flood. I think they started the Flood.
Mm-hmm.
I would wish that people would be more. It's hard because trying too much will ruin things too. But I would love new bands not to try to copy what has been. I would love. mm, I would love people to trust their own voice, their own musicality. Uh, but I love the I love some the many bands. There have been
Yep.
become so many new musicians, and it has. We would probably not start, at least without the influence of Vardruna. We wouldn't start the way we started, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Because I wouldn't have any idea that it would be possible to make melancholic Viking music.
Yeah, it's he definitely, I agree with your statement that he sort of opened the floodgates, because I remember when he, if he listens to this is gonna be so funny for him to hear, but I remember like when I was at Midgardsblot in 2022 and I saw him like in the crowd, you can kind of tell he has this look on his face like, what have I done? Or like, not in an entirely bad way, but it's just sort of like, because Vardruna really was the one that sort of like opened that floodgate. And so it's got to be weird to him to like be at a place like Midgardsblot looking around and being like, this is weird. Because it had, in a lot of ways, I will say confidently, you don't have to agree with my wording here, but in a lot of ways I think it's gotten a little out of hand. And that's got to be weird if you're the one that started the snowball effect. So I just
I
imagine that's
think
very
it's gotten
interesting.
out of hand because people don't try to make their own way. Be a part of the flood. Don't be the flood. Just be a part of it.
That's a really good way to put it, man. Because that's just talking about music specifically. I see the ways that that manifests in the way that people approach their own music. Where I have people who send me their music and like, hey, can you listen to this? I'd love for you to review it. And I listen to it. I'm like, I don't have anything to say about this because it's just
No,
Vardruna.
no.
I don't, and that's always tough to say, because the last thing and actually what I'll end up doing is if I just don't respond, because the last thing I want to do is sort of like discourage someone or be the reason someone gave up music. Like that would be the worst feeling in the world. But then also it's like weird that like people value my opinion when they send me their music. I'm like, dude, I'm just some weird dork in Colorado. Like, if you like making music, listen to the music. But I hear a lot of stuff where I'm like, where are you in this? Where's you?
Mm.
I hear a lot of Einar, but you're not
Mm.
Einar. So
Mm.
where do you come into this music? And I just think that if there was anything that you were going to say, to sort of close up the thoughts on this, I think that was a really good lesson to take away. Just like be yourself, trust your own music, trust your
There
own
are still
musicality
many,
is good.
yeah, there's still many colors to choose from.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, man, I think that's a really good note to end on. I think it's really uplifting, as opposed to the music of yours, which is very death, disease, and destruction. I think that I think it was really good for you to sort of like voice, because a lot of people do look up to you, man, myself included, as a musician. And I just think it's really important for you to be able to say the things that are on your mind, so people can listen to people that they look up to and be like, oh, that's a different perspective that I needed. Um,
Mm.
and so I'm just, yeah, if
Just
there's enough, yep,
this is something I need to say. Please
go
don't
for
look up to. You can look over to and be like the things I do, but don't look up to.
That was the most Norwegian response to that I could have imagined. Don't look up to people. Yeah, yeah. Very, very typical of the Scandinavian mindset.
Yeah, we're all the same height.
Jantelauen? I know that's more associated with Swedish, but Jantelauen were like, don't strive to
Janteloven.
be. Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
no, but Janteloven is more keep keep him down, because he's
Oh,
not
okay.
good enough. But I don't. Like I said, I've never idolized anyone. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think I've looked up to anyone. I have been impressed, and I keep being impressed, and I think people do great stuff, but I never looked up to anyone. Uh, I don't want anyone to look up to me. Please like the things I do. Like the things
Okay,
I do. Don't look up to
then I will not non-consensually look up to you. Oh, damn, dude, that's good. Fine. I admire you, Espen, and a lot of people admire what you do. And so I think that it means a lot to have for you to be able to sort of like speak your piece on this sort of thing. Because yeah, people admire
Yeah, and
you if
don't,
they don't look up to you.
it really matters that that people, because it's from my heart. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, Espen, it's been such a good time having you on the channel, man. I am so glad, we met for the first time last year, and I just don't know why it's taken so long to have you on. But I really appreciate you coming on and talking to some random dork in Colorado about your music, man.
I love you, Dork.
I love you too, Espen. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing you. Only like 3 weeks away, 2 weeks away. It's
Yeah.
it's
I just
down
hope
to the wire, not to stress you out.
I just hope we will be ready.
Oh, you know you will. And as has been the trend in this conversation, even if you think it's going terribly, everyone else is gonna love it. You know what I mean?
I hope so.
No, it's gonna be great, man. So yeah, so if is there anything you want to say, but where can people find you? Any last words you want to say before I let you go here?
Yeah, I spoke to Terje, the drummer in Eldrim, earlier today, and I said, as a joke, I will keep saying me, me through the whole interview. I will not mention any other members of the band, and it's almost been like that.
Well, do you want to? I mean, like, if you want to take a minute to, sort of like just highlight the members of the band and all of that, I mean, like, you're very welcome to, man.
That is just, I just, ooh, haven't I told too much about myself now?
Well, I mean, I have you on, so you're allowed to talk about yourself if someone invites you on to talk about yourself. So I wouldn't feel too guilty about it. All right.
Yeah, so now you have to interview the rest.
Just one at a time. I'm just gonna go through the grinder. Everyone's got to go through the Nordic Sound Channel grinder, right? Oh, that's great,
And
man.
I think they'll forgive me.
A
I
very
just
forgiving
hope the
bunch.
people. I hope the people will like our new songs for the Dead album. It's a dark thing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, people will, man. I mean, like, I am not nearly special enough to be the only person to like this. You know what I mean? So if I like it, it means that a certain amount of other people like it too. But no, seriously, come on. Like, it's a good album. I cannot wait for everyone listening to this interview right now. When you finally have the album in your hands, you're going to see why I love it so much. So, anyway, Espen, stick around after I end the recording button. But other than that, take care, man. It's been really great to have you on, and I'll see you in Norway in a couple weeks. All right?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you got it, man.